Hey everybody, welcome back to the Dungeon Dive. Daniel here. I hope you're doing well, and if you're not, I hope you are soon. Okay, this week on the Dungeon Dive, we're taking a look at a couple games that I think deserve more attention. I think these games have kind of fallen off the radar of some people's or fallen off of some people's radars. And the nice thing about them is that you can find them for not a lot of money. So in the last episode, we took a look at the Chronicles of Avel, along with its two expansions, which you can readily get new from Amazon or from from a number of places. And today we are taking a look at Escape from 100 Million B.C. Now, I don't think this game is in print anymore, but used copies are next to nothing. I've seen this game go for as low as $20 on eBay. It is not a collector's item at all. But I rarely hear people talk about this game, and I think this game is supremely fun. I often forget about it, but every time I pull it out to play, I have a lot of fun with a couple of caveats. Let's take a look at the box here. So, Escape from 100 Million BC, and this is designed by Kevin Wilson. So, Kevin Wilson, a pretty popular a game designer in that kind of middle period, in that first kind of era of the board game renaissance with a lot of Ameritrash games. So I think one of the issues with this game is people see this cover, and this cover looks amazing. I mean, it just looks so exciting. We have this big kind of pulpy font, Escape from 100 Million BC, and this weird kind of time distortion up here, and all of these dinosaurs, and this buff kind of, I don't know, 80s action hero dude running away with a cool looking gun. And you pick it up and you think, oh man, this is going to be awesome. And then you turn it over, and I think a lot of that initial excitement kind of deflates by what they show on the back of the box here. There seems to be some kind of dichotomy between what it looks like and what they are trying to portray it as. However, when you play the game, it feels more like this rather than something kind of dull looking like this. But anyways, let's read a little bit about this game. So your team of intrepid adventurers has embarked on history's first time traveling expedition, only for the professor's time machine to malfunction, crashing into the lip of an active volcano and stranding you 100 million years in the past. Reassemble your time machine without altering the past or causing paradoxes. This cooperative big box adventure game is designed by Kevin Wilson, Descent, Arkham Horror, and TMNT. All three pretty dang good games, I say. And it's for 1 to 6 adventurers. Explore volcanoes, jungles, and prehistoric swamps while searching for valuable technology and avoiding rampaging dinosaurs. Return wayward historical figures like Abraham Lincoln and Teddy Roosevelt, who've been pulled into the past by rippling time paradoxes, all while racing against a volcano that's about to explode and obliterate your entire team. So yes, very exciting game. It's an overland adventure game where your time machine has crashed into the lip of this volcano, and you are playing as a group of scientists and explorers. You can be people like an investigator, a botanist, a paleontologist. And I am playing as a research scientist here. So I have my research scientist, Annie Lynn, and I am playing as the soldier, Hannah Chickus here. And I'm also playing as Jake Stern, the reporter. And I find that playing 3 survivors, 3 time explorers is a really nice balance. And I don't feel like it's overwhelming. And I feel like I have enough coverage of the board to take care of things. So your characters will have a number of stats. They will have brawn and willpower and speed/movement, and then health points, hit points, and they will also have 1 or 2 abilities, like a lot of Kevin Wilson's games, like Arkham Horror, basically Arkham Horror 2nd Edition. The stats represent a dice pool, and so you are often rolling a pool of dice, and you're looking for 4s, 5s, or 6s to be successes, with 6s being a exploding success where it counts as 1, and then you get to re-roll again, and dice can explode over and over again. So exploding dice mechanisms, D6 dice pools, those are things that I really like, and I like them in this game. So in this game, a brief overview, then we'll talk about a few points. I have 4 positive points and 2 negative points. But as a brief overview, you land in this volcano area, and then you have to explore this world. And it's kind of like a hex crawl, and you have these hex tiles. And you have a certain number of action points each turn, and that's dictated by your character's movement speed. And you can move and explore up until a point where you reach some kind of creature. You might come across a dinosaur, and the dinosaurs are represented by all of these different dinosaur cards. So we have meat eaters, we have carnivore dinosaurs here. Now I'm sure that a lot of this dino information is out of date because dino information is constantly new things are constantly being discovered. Names are being changed all the time. I can't even talk to my young nephews about dinosaurs anymore because all of the names that I knew them as are different now. But we also have our herbivores, and so these are a little less deadly. So you might encounter some dinosaurs out in the world. And as you go into the water territories, you might also discover some aquatic dinosaurs. And you can attack them, but if you cause too much harm and you change too much in the world, you do have to worry about creating time paradoxes. And we'll talk a little bit more about that in just a minute. But you can move and explore up until you reach a creature such as a dinosaur, or you might come across one of these challenges, one of these non-combat encounters. And those will be represented by a little fedora on the map here, if I can find one. So a little fedora icon there. And when you land one of those, you stop, and then you will have one of these non-combat encounters, such as maybe you find some extra ammo, or maybe you, tramping through the prehistoric landscape, you pause as you step on something strange. Crunch. Lifting up your shoe, you see a large, brightly colored creature that looks like a cross between a butterfly and a moth squashed on the bottom of your tread. Add 1 paradox. And sometimes you will be told to have stat challenges. Sometimes just that things will happen, and those will correspond to different terrain. So when you move into one terrain that has that fedora icon, you draw one of these cards until you draw one that matches the terrain you're on, so you can have that kind of encounter. And then also while you are exploring, you will have a chance to come across these crates, these item crates, cargo crates that have fallen out of your time machine. And then you can pick those up to get a whole bunch of different items that can help you explore, help you overcome challenges. But be careful about using these because using these can cause time paradoxes. And we'll talk a little bit more about these in a minute. Now, one other thing that is happening is you see these gold spaces, these dark gold spaces. Those are time portals, and because of your time machine coming into this land and causing a ripple through time, you have also caused all of these time portals to open. And through those time portals, these time castaways will come falling through. Teddy Roosevelt, Abe Lincoln. So we have real historic figures, we have fictional characters, and all kinds of different people and things that have fallen through time. And these time castaways will be on the board with these little markers with a number associated to them. And they are wandering around, and it's up to us to get them, to collect them, to convince them to join with us and bring them back to their starting portals so they can be sent back to their time. Because at the end of the game, you want to have caused as little havoc in the past as possible. So you want to return things to normal, or you will generate too much paradox, too many bad points of paradox, and then you will cause a complete destruction of the timeline. And then that is represented in this kind of, at the end of the game, depending on how many paradox points, you have a certain ending, from a good ending to a very bad ending. So the paradox points are kept track of along this track around the board. And as you move up, you will use this paradox marker here. And certain bad things will start to happen if you ever cause too much chaos in time and the paradox marker ends up on this volcano space, then the volcano erupts and you lose the game. And so that's kind of basically how the game is played. You also do have this board over here. Let's see if I can move this onto the camera without causing a major destruction. But you have this time machine board here. And the main thing you're trying to do while you are exploring, in addition to helping those time castaways get back to their time, is you are looking for the different parts of your time machine in order to repair it, and so you can get back to your time. And depending on the difficulty that you have chosen, you need to find a certain number of time machine parts. Right now I am playing on easy, so I just need 6 time machine parts, and I already have 1. And then these are all of the tiles stacked in their various terrain stacks for when you are exploring. And then we also have an emergency recall track here. Whenever one of your characters dies, or you can also do a voluntary recall, you get teleported back to the volcano, to your time machine space, and then you have to add a paradox, and then that goes up. So each time your character dies, or each time you want to teleport back, the emergency recall will cause more time ripples, more paradox. So one of the things that this game excels at is creating a sense of wacky fun. It creates so many humorous moments, and every time I play it, it just seems to cause these kind of serendipitous and chaotic moments on the game board. And that's one of the things that I love most about it. Right now, I'm doing terribly in this game. All kinds of stuff has happened very early in the game. I'm kind of facing an uphill battle. It does have that kind of quality to it, like an Arkham Horror 2nd Edition, or one of those threat management games where things can very quickly spiral out of control. But right now in this world, through time portals, we have the time castaways of Daniel Boone, we have the Big Lebowski, we have Albert Einstein, and a mysterious death ray. So Daniel Boone is represented by this token here, 1, and this standee 1 here. So he has come from time portal number 1, which is all the way down here. But he's up here, and he's kind of stuck in this unexplored space. And he has the ability to fight off dinosaurs on his own. However, if he kills a dinosaur, then I generate a point of paradox. So that's really bad. So I need to get him back to his time portal before he causes too much damage. Usually when a dino moves into this space with a time castaway, they will just eat that time castaway, destroying it, and that too will cause paradox. And when a time castaway dies, you have to add a number of paradox to your time tracker. Additionally, if you leave too many castaways in the past when you make your time jump after you've repaired your ship, then you add that to the timer and you can still lose the game even though you have you've already repaired your time machine. So you really want to be careful with how much damage is done to this world while you are trying to repair your time machine. Now over here we have a very interesting little grouping of time castaways over here. Number 5 here, we have Jeff Lebowski, the Big Lebowski there, drinking his milk. So he landed here, then he floated off into the ocean. So maybe he's like on an inner tube or something over here. And he is joined next to him is Albert Einstein. So we have Albert Einstein and the Big Lebowski chilling in the oceans here. Hopefully they're not going to get eaten by an aquatic dinosaur. And also just recently, a mysterious death ray floated through from the future. And so we have this really interesting grouping of time castaways over here. I'm not sure what's going on. I'm sure Albert Einstein would love to get his hands on that mysterious death ray, and maybe he could develop that into something that would really alter the future. And hey, that could be bad. That would cause a ripple throughout time that I'm sure nobody could withstand. So in addition to the wacky fun that this game creates, all of the weird kind of random scenarios that generate randomly through the draw of cards and the placing of tokens and items, another thing this game does is it creates a really good sense of exploration and adventure while trying to keep things from spiraling out of control. So in this game, all of the characters will start in this volcano spot. It is pretty, one of the things that they call this the time machine spot because that's where your time machine has landed, at the lip of this volcano, but there's no time machine on this spot. It's a little confusing. I think they should have called this the volcano spot or the volcano space, or maybe actually drawn a time machine there. But you start there and you start to explore out. And we have mountains, we have rivers, we have forests and plains. And so we have all this different territory. And every time you move into a new unexplored tile, you draw one of the tiles from that tile board that I showed earlier, and you lay it down with the arrows pointing in the direction that you're moving into. And there are barriers that will actually create these neat little pathways that you have to work through. And it ends up creating this kind of maze-like environment that you are exploring while you are uncovering item crates, while you are uncovering different types of adventures, and while you are also coming across, of course, your carnivore and your herbivore and your aquatic dinosaurs. I love the way that the tiles make this really interesting, these interesting pathways. A lot of times in these kind of hex crawl games, you could kind of just go any direction. It doesn't really feel like you are navigating the environment, but in this game, it really does. However, this leads me to one of my major complaints about the game, and that is the artwork on the tile. It's just dreadful. It is so bad. It is so uninspiring and dull. I've seen better iconography, better artwork on poor quality prototypes on GameCrafter. I would not expect this from somebody with the lineage of Kevin Wilson or from IDW, a company that is known for producing visually interesting things. This is what they chose for their tiles. Very, very odd. These logs here, I don't know. It almost looks like a clip art or something. A clip art log there. Those are the barriers. And while the barriers do create interesting pathways, they just look really boring. And when you run into a tile that has multiple barriers, they didn't create a multiple barrier art. They just stacked these log clip art pictures back to back and kind of overlapped them. And yeah, it just doesn't look very exciting. I don't get excited when I draw one of these because of the art or because of the neat thing that I might the way that it'll end up looking on the board. You get excited because of finding these icons that you can interact with, or by the way that you have to further explore because you're trying to get over here to one. So I think my soldier here, Hana Chakis, she was here and I wanted to get to one. I wanted to get over to Daniel Boone so I could escort him back to his time portal right here. And so I was moving in this direction. So I moved here and this was blocked off. And then I moved here and it was a total block off. So now I need to go kind of back in this direction and go around. And who knows if I can even reach him. I might find a complete dead end. Now you can find certain items such as machetes, and those machetes will help you pass through one barrier. But if there are two barriers back to back like that, then you can't pass through them. And so the tile placement and the way that works in this game, it really does matter. And the reporter here, one of his special abilities is when I place a tile, I can actually rotate it one position to the left or to the right. So he's better at kind of deciphering where to go. And I do really, really enjoy that. I like that aspect quite a bit. And that sense of exploration is also really entertaining and really fun just because of the way you deal with the different castaways and where they are positioned, where they are grouped up. Hey, you never know. You might find a grouping of the Big Lebowski, Albert Einstein, and a mysterious death ray floating out in the ocean to where you need to go and rescue all of them, or some major bad stuff is going to happen. And that leads me to my next point, and that is the time castaways and this kind of creative use of threat management. So a lot of times in these threat management style games, the threat management can be a little static. It can be a little unexciting. But I like the way that the time castaways are handled in this game. When you draw one of the time castaway markers, actually this 3 here, yes. So actually I also have this other time castaway. I forgot about her, Lisa Del Giancondo. So she's out there. So she needs to get back to 3. She is actually has joined forces with Anne Lynn, the research assistant. And so Anne Lynn is trying to get her castaway back to spot 3 there. But they will move according to kind of a random roll of a die during a certain portion of the turn. At the end of the turn, you will roll 2d6, and the red die will determine where they move. Each castaway will move one space, so they're kind of roaming all over the board. If they encounter a dinosaur, then the dinosaur will attack them. And because they are always kind of moving around, and you never know exactly where they are going to be, because when a time castaway comes, let's say you drew Bill, the future warrior. Here we go. Bill the galactic hero, probably. Although, does he have two left hands or two right hands? I think Bill the galactic hero has two right hands, right? Harry Harrison. But Bill the future warrior, if he was at number 4, then he would spawn here. But then he randomly, or not randomly, but he moves 2 in that direction. So he would actually spawn here. And then you would have to get him back to spot number 4. But there's a chance that he could be roaming around on other explored tiles. So you never exactly know where he is going to be. And so the threat management in this game is more dynamic because things are constantly moving around. And those different threats, those different time castaways can interact with the dinosaurs and with the board in various ways. When you encounter one of the time castaways, you have to do a test in order to convince them to join you. And the test is your willpower against their deception or something like that. I can't remember exactly what that's called, but you roll a number of d6, they will roll a number of d6s. Whoever has the most successes, if you as the player have the most successes, then you have convinced them to join you. And when they do join you, they actually will also add some kind of mechanical benefit that you can take advantage of as they are with you. And then when you return them, you can actually lower your position on the paradox track down to a certain level so that you have more opportunities or a better chance of getting a better score at the end of the game. So just a really creative use of threat management in this game, and it's one of my favorite kind of threat management games. In addition to the time castaways being interesting, the itemization, the loot is really interesting in this game as well, because the loot, as you discover it, will not only help your characters get more powerful, it will not only allow your characters to have different abilities and different ways to interact with the world, but the loot is also a threat management system. At the beginning of the game, each of your survivors, each of your time travelers will gain 2 items, and you can use those items. You can trade and make sure that you have a good pairing between the items and the characters. And each of the items actually has a paradox level. And depending on how many players you are playing with, or how many heroes you are playing with, how many characters, at the beginning of the game, you will discard a certain number of cards and you will have a subset of items to work with in that game. And the reason why that's important is because you need to try to collect as many items as possible, not only to make your characters more powerful and to make them more capable of handling all of the different challenges that they'll be facing in a game, but at the end of the game, when you have repaired your time machine and you make that last jump to go back home, you take all of the item cards that you haven't yet discovered and you add points to the paradox track, depending on their score. And kind of the more technologically advanced the item is, the more paradox it will create, because you've left those things back in time. And so people will discover them. You know, if some Neanderthal or something eventually discovered a nano factory, maybe they wouldn't know what to do with it, but this would be pretty bad to leave back in time. A grenade, a pistol is worth 1, some hiking boots is worth 0, some kind of tasty snack is worth 3. And so while you are exploring, it's really important to explore. It's really important to engage with the game so you can find as many items as possible. And there is no limit to how many items your characters can have, which I appreciate. You don't need to worry about getting items back to the ship. You can just carry as many things as you can. And hopefully that you can, while you are exploring, while you're finding those items, you are also finding these spots with these little gear spots, because those will spawn the time machine parts, and then that will allow you to take those back to the time machine, deposit them, and repair your time machine for your jump back into your own time. So the resource gathering mechanisms, the loot mechanisms play an intricate part in the overall design of the game. They aren't just used, the itemizations, the items, the loot isn't just used to make your characters stronger, but it's also used to determine how well you do at the end of the game. And I really do appreciate that. I don't think I've ever seen another game that does that same thing. And that's something that I really do appreciate about this game. So those are my positive points. The negative point, we've already talked about one, and that is the iconography and the tile art. It just isn't very exciting. And unfortunately, my last negative point and my last kind of actual point about the game is the documentation. It's really bad. I mean, really, really bad. It doesn't have any kind of player aids at all. So if you are getting confused while you are playing, you will have to refer to this rule book. This rulebook is only 23 pages, and it's actually pretty small. It's a nice little square size, so it's not a large rulebook. However, there is a 7-page FAQ on all kinds of rule clarifications. The game is not a complex game, but the rulebook does everything it can to make you think otherwise. Some of the examples are straight up wrong for example, how the castaways and the creatures move when it's the game's turn. Just straight up wrong. It's confusing. There are passive checks and active skill checks, and both of those are basically the same. I've read both of these passages, both of these examples, multiple times, and they're basically the same kind of check. And there are some threads on BGG asking people, could you please explain the difference between a passive skill check and an active skill check? And the answer is, well, they're basically the same. There's just a slight difference, but you didn't need to have to call them out in the rule book. It's a really poorly written rule book. It makes the game feel a lot more complex than it is, a lot more fiddly than it is. Because once you get going, once you start playing, you're like, oh, okay, yeah, this is actually kind of simple and breezy and super fun. And so if you end up getting this game, I do recommend just going into BGG. There are 2 rules summaries, and both of them are really good. This is the one that I have, and I haven't printed out the other one because I've gotten enough use out of this one, and it does make playing the game a heck of a lot easier. But overall, I think Escape from 100 Million B.C. is a lot of fun. Every time I play this game, I have a blast playing it. I like taking these characters into the past here and exploring from one tile to the next, having these adventures, meeting this kind of disparate cast of time castaways, never really knowing the combination of time castaways. Are you going to have Socrates meets Friedrich Nietzsche and a woolly mammoth are going to be coming out here? There's Lucy or a Roman legionnaire, Casey the stable boy, John F. Kennedy. Hey, maybe John F. Kennedy should teleport in and join the Big Lebowski and Albert Einstein over here by this futuristic death ray. One other thing that I do wish is there are a lot of combat encounters. So we have this large deck of carnivores, we have this large deck of herbivores, and we have this large deck of aquatic creatures. And unfortunately, the deck of non-combat encounters is pretty slim. I would have loved to have seen half as many dinosaur cards and twice as many exploration cards, because like a lot of games like this, these non-combat encounters are usually the things that I find the most joy in when I get to draw one of these. There's a good number. I think there's 30 or so, maybe 25 or so. But I would have loved to have seen more of these, and I wish there was just maybe a small expansion for this game that just added some more variety. But as long as you're not playing this game, multiple times a week, pull it out a couple times a year, and I think you will have fun. It's one of those games. It's a pretty small box. It's one of those just kind of old school Fantasy Flight size boxes that I really appreciate. This is a size box that I miss. I wish more games these days came in boxes this size. They're easy to store. And I think the game just comes with just enough stuff to have a good time a few times a year. And the fact that you can pick it up for basically about $20, maybe a little bit more, is a real bonus. So if you're looking for a game that might have flown under your radar and you're looking for a good kind of pulpy, adventurous game, then I think you would have a good time with Escape from 100 Million BC. So, all right, guys. Well, I hope you enjoyed this review of Escape from 100 Million BC. We will talk to you later. Bye-bye.